our luggage. Hence the name Bag and Baggage, which also comes from As You Like It. Shakespeare is the first use of the word baggage in the English language. It's a word that Shakespeare invented, so it felt like a good combination because we were traveling and also we were producing a lot of Shakespeare. I'm originally from Hillsboro, so a few years after we started doing that touring, a giant brand new theater space just down the street called the Venetian opened, and the mayor at the time, Mayor Tom Hughes, said, you should go talk to those people and see if they want to do some work in there. Tom had just come to see a performance that we did of Shakespeare's The Scottish Play, can't say it because we're in a theater, and loved the show. And then we went and had a meeting with the folks there, and they said, yeah, we'll give you one shot. We'll put on one performance and see how it goes. And it sold out. So they invited us to become the resident performing arts group there, and we were performing at the Venetian for almost 10 years before that facility closed down as a result of the economic downturn. We were the largest arts and culture organization in Hillsboro and the only professional arts organization, the only professional theater in this community. When the Venetian shut down, this building, I'm trying to remember how long it was empty. It was probably 25 or 30 years. This has been a former US Bank building, and it had just been sitting here empty. And through an innovative partnership with the city of Hillsboro, they loaned us the money to purchase the building, and then we raised just under $2 million to renovate it into a highly flexible studio space. Just prior to the pandemic, the budget of the organization was about just under $1 million, making us one of the largest arts organizations, theaters, sort of in the Portland metro area, top 10 in terms of size. Then the pandemic came, obviously. A lot of stuff, bad stuff happened. I don't know if you want me to regale you with all the bad things that happened during the pandemic, but obviously it had an impact on the organization, and it shrunk down, and now we're just in the process of sort of re-emerging under the leadership of a new board and a managing director, and we'll talk a little bit about the fact that they're searching for a new artistic director in just a moment. This space became the Vault Theater, which you'll note in just a few minutes why it's called that, because the actual bank vault is still here. You remember this from your first time?
I do remember it.
We tried to track the Congresswoman in the vault, but the staff excellent staff. The company was previously really focused on adaptations of classical work, a way to sort of crack open and examine those works of dramatic literature that people were familiar with, but adapt them and treat them in new ways to engage people in conversation. Really focused exclusively on this community. As Hillsboro has grown, so has Bag and Baggage, really reflecting the changing demographics of this community and really seeking to give those folks an opportunity to call this place their own theater. We love our colleagues in Portland, but we have everything we need right here. So we encourage Hillsboro audiences to sort of take ownership over this space and really feel like it's their home. And in addition to our own performances, we also do a lot of partnerships with other performing arts groups, dance, music, comedy, etc. So this is the lobby. The only thing really interesting about the lobby is the bar, which we, yes, of course, colors are right in front of the bar. The bar was actually designed and built by local artists. So everything about this bar, including the mosaics on top, were in partnership with a series of local artists who came into the woodworking and the steel work and also the mosaics on the top of it. So this is the lobby. Welcome. About, as I said, about the same size as the Reeser.
Slightly smaller.
Yeah, because of the works that have been produced in the vault since the vault opened about 3.5 years ago. And thank you. It's a really remarkable space. And obviously compared to places like the Reeser, which is a big proscenium, traditional proscenium, 500 plus audiences, our needs are very everything in the round. You could do 3/4 thrust or proscenium style as you see right now. The coolest thing about this building is the stuff that's hanging above your head. One of the things that we really wanted to do was have Bag and Baggage be very technology forward. So when we purchased the building and when we were raising money, we really wanted to invest in as much of the technological equipment that would allow us to continue to be flexible. So you can see we have a ton of LED lights, we have moving lights, the Mavericks, which are these, I can see them, you might be able to see one over there. They kind of look like they're laser cannons. Sort of from Star Trek. They are completely programmable, so they can move around. They can project light in any color that you can type in. They have a series of gobos that will change the shape and put patterns on the ground. You can program them to follow an actor around the space as a spotlight. And it really does just make the building, although people kind of sometimes call it a black box, we like to call it a studio space, which means it has a higher technology profile than most black boxes that you would see sort of at a university. You know, a little bit, you know, some lights hanging in the air, but not the meeting space. We have our box, the tech booth is directly up there. Behind us, there's a kitchen space. Downstairs, there are dressing rooms and restrooms. So everything we need to be a fully sort of operational professional theater is housed in this building, which was a huge change from where we were before. We did not own the Venetian. We were just guests there. So anytime they had a bigger event, they could boot us from the calendar. They could say, hey, we have a bar mitzvah, we have a wedding, could you guys move your production of Hamlet out of the building for a few days? So buying this building really gave the company security, gave us an opportunity to think very long-term about what we were going to do, and also develop deeper roots within the community and those deeper connections. I think one of the things that's so great about Bag and Baggage, as I've mentioned before, is it really has become identified as Hillsboro's own theater company. We love our colleagues from Portland, we love their performances, but what we tell people is that you can come here and see quality performances, quality theater in your own backyard and support the nonprofit organizations that are acting as a hub for a ton of different performance styles right here in Hillsboro. I also just want to point out that our relationship with the city of Hillsboro over the years, in addition to them loaning us the funds to purchase this building, also, it was about 5 or 6 years ago, we had a conversation with the city wherein they decided to become one of our main funders through operating budget support. It's a remarkable partnership. I'm sure you know, operating support is absolutely crucial for organizations like ours. So the city of Hillsboro has agreed to provide us up to 10% of our operating budget annually, not to exceed $100,000. So as the organization's budget fluctuates, and particularly now as we're looking at reduced budgets and as the budgets continue to grow, that partnership with the city of Hillsboro means that it's a commitment and an investment in the success of the company. As we grow, the city steps up and continues to provide that additional support. I'm going to give you a little background about the show just so that you're not confused about what you're about to see. The show is called The Last White Man by playwright Bill Kane. Bill Kane is a playwright and an artistic director of Shakespeare companies. He lives in Boston, and he was the director of the Boston Shakespeare Company. And he's obsessed not only with Shakespeare, but also with the impact that Shakespeare has on our culture and our community. He wrote the play to really examine the place that Hamlet takes up in the sort of theater mind. And we hold up Hamlet as the example of the best work. What does it say about the fact that we know so little about classical work from other cultures, other backgrounds, and who gets access to Hamlet and who is denied? So the performance you're about to see today is from one of our actors, James Luster, who's agreed to come in and show a few things from the play tonight. The play is originally, it's set in 1989. So there'll be some references that you might be like, that doesn't feel very PC. And there's a good reason for that, because it was in 1989.
You ever notice there are no roles left for white men anymore? Exclusively. There are many roles that can be portrayed exclusively by black actors, but not a single one left for a white man. Because everyone thinks they know what it is to play a white man's part. No research needed. I mean, everyone thinks they know what it is to be a white man. And I say, sure, maybe you do. If you came up with democracy and the Roman Empire and the Renaissance and the Enlightenment and the steam engine, and by the way, you're welcome. You know, people take for granted the cost white men have paid for all that. No, more than that, they despise it. They despise what it costs us. They despise our hardness, our loneliness, our callousness, our anger, our suppression of feelings, all of which were absolutely essential to get us, all of us, where we are today. We are blamed for our strength and then replaced by people who never acknowledge the cost of the achievements that they insist are their rights to enjoy. I will not be made to feel guilty for any part I get to play, including Othello or Hamlet. What happened to Charlie broke my heart, but I can't do the part and feel guilty for taking it over at the same time. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them. To die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep we say to end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we shuffle off this mortal coil must give us pause. And the light hits you, and they wait for your first line. And you wait too. And your first line in this greatest of tragedies is impossibly a joke, which is the kindest thing Shakespeare ever did for an actor. They laugh. You know, laughter can be dangerous in a tragedy, but this laugh is good. It means we're with you. The world appears around you. A world very like our own, with politics and brutality, lies, invasions and war, and love, and loss. But there's one important difference in this world. You matter. Single life matters. Your life matters. And by the end of it, the light isn't hitting you. It's actually coming out of you. It's the worst part about it is after. It's impossible to play any other role. After you play Hamlet, why would you even try?
Meet you. Yeah, so the impacts of federal funding, I mean, most recently, especially with the COVID pandemic, most mid-sized theaters in this country were basically shut down. The employees had to, had to go find other jobs. We were able, with the funding, to keep our staff on half-time. All of us. We had 0% layoffs here, which was extremely important.
How many staff?
We, at the time, were six staff. And along with that, we were also able to continue to produce during the pandemic. We produced a bunch of virtual programming. We did a series of 7 things that we called sequestered soliloquies, which were able to give jobs to about 30 artists per time, and then they were streamed online, so we were able to reach out to not only our audiences, but anybody anywhere that wanted to see it, and that was all free of charge as well. So that was important. And then as we came out of the pandemic, what was even more important was we still weren't really able to let people back in the building much because of the dangers of it. So we started out by producing outdoor Shakespeare. Well, it was actually complete works of Shakespeare abridged was our first show back from the pandemic, when we were able, with a partnership with the city and with those fundings, to produce that work. And then from there, we moved to produce another piece called Bluebeard, which was partnered with the Rice Museum of Rocks and Minerals. It was a drive-through production. And it was out kind of in the woods. It was a really spooky, kind of creepy thing that happened last October. And it presented so many challenges, but because we had funding, we were able to continue to shift and move as we needed to be able to make work.
The pandemic was particularly hard on any arts organization that has live performances, and we recognize that. And thanks to the chair and the National Endowment for the Arts and RAC and everyone. I think you got some of the shuttered venue as well.
We did, yeah.
I just want to tell you, I want to make sure I get the title right. Like, moving forward, we're having a conversation about this. What happens next, and how can you grow, and how do we continue to rebuild after the challenges. We're not out of the woods yet on the pandemic either, but I have introduced something called the Creative Act. It's an acronym, and kudos to my staff, because all good bills have created an acronym. It's the Capital Repairs and Employment for Art Talent to Improve Visibility Everywhere, or Creative Act.
Who on your staff came up with that?
You did that. Okay, so Jason.
Nice.
So we just have to remember Creative Act. And it's really about expanding access to capital, because that's something we've heard about a lot, and the challenges there. Seeking community input, reaching underserved communities, and then we have a rural outreach provided to make sure that dollars are going to rural communities, not just urban communities. But I'm really excited about it. We just introduced it, and I have this huge paragraph of endorsing organizations, including the Americans for the Arts, Grant Makers in the Arts, Cultural Advocacy Coalition of Oregon, thank you, and just a large group, because there's a recognition of, we still have work to do to rebuild, and with the importance of the arts and arts in our communities, we're hopeful that we can get this going and have additional support that can go through the grant process to help.
It's so important, because I think there's so many of us in the arts who are like, oh good, some of us are back. Well, for the last couple of years we weren't back, and this building sat here, and we didn't have an opportunity to continue.
We can also marshal some of the other assets that are available at the federal level as a federal agency in support of what I think of as artful lives and strong arts ecosystems that support that. So, as you think about over the last couple of years when everyone was pressed, what has learned.
Of their artists, and then say that's also not enough. It's not enough. It's that well-rounded space, is that is sitting in the education space, it's sitting in just life. How do we keep making sure that that is how we move forward? We have to be listening as funders, we have to be engaging as funders, and we have to be supporting as funders.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.